As the Director of Training and Development for Atari, I was in charge of management training for the Atari Corporation, and we had just put together a major program in supervisory training, Zenger Miller, to be given to every supervisor in the company. We decided to inaugurate the program at the El Paso, Texas manufacturing plant. Cecile O'Brien was the fireball I had hired to do the supervisory training program. This was her first time working as a trainer. In El Paso, Cecile was doing the actual supervisory training, and I was doing the management seminar. The management seminar was designed to tell the managers about the training being given to the supervisors who reported to them. I went down a day early and met with the top executives for the plant. The next day, Cecile came down, and while I met with the second-level managers, Cecile trained the first group of supervisors. Supervisory training lasted 2 days, while the management meeting lasted just 1 day. I was halfway through with my second seminar when during lunch break, Cecile came to me almost in tears. "The air conditioning isn't working and it's unbearable in there," she shouted. "The videotape machine is acting up, and on top of all of that, they hate me," she cried. I calmed her down and told her to go back in and finish the afternoon session as best she could. Then we'd have dinner and discuss everything. That night, when we talked over dinner, she wasn't feeling very good. The afternoon session had not gone any better, and she didn't seem to know what to do to fix it. I let her talk out all of the frustration she was feeling, and then I said, "Okay, tell me what worked." "Nothing," she explained with passion. "Come on, something worked. It's important that we don't forget what worked. If we're going to consider changes, we want to make sure we don't change what's working. So one more time, tell me what worked." It took her a while, but she finally came up with a sizable list of things that worked well. "Okay," I said. "Now, what would you do differently?" This was a lot easier, and it wasn't long at all before we had a good list of things that she wanted to change. In fact, her list included everything I had thought might need to be done differently. Not necessarily differently from what we planned, but differently from how she had done it that morning and afternoon. By the end of the conversation, I felt confident that she was going to do a better job the next day, and she had figured it out all for herself. There was no need for me to add anything to her list. "You are going to stay here tomorrow and give me a hand if I need it, aren't you?" she asked. This threw me into a quandary. I had planned to go home the next morning and considered what changes in my schedule I would have to make to stay in El Paso. I quickly realized there was no reason why I couldn't stay another day if I wanted to. The program itself was important. If this initial session failed, we might have trouble with management and might not be able to continue the program throughout the rest of the organization. There were plenty of reasons for making sure that it went off right. Then I considered what the impact would be on Cecile if I stayed. She wouldn't be mad at me for not trusting her. She was actually hoping I would stay and take some of the pressure off. On the other hand, she would probably give me credit if it worked, and she wouldn't have discovered she could do it for herself. As I thought it over, I realized not only was the program important, but Cecile's confident and competent management of it was just as critical. I really couldn't afford to create a situation where she was dependent on my continual input. The project could easily suffer greater harm by my staying than it might if I left. The answer was clear. I would serve the project, the team, and Cecile better if I left, if I gave her the opportunity to discover just how good she really was. "I'm going home. You can handle it. I'm confident of that," I said with a smile. "What do you mean, you can handle it?" she replied with obvious anger. "Just what I said. I've sat here for over an hour, and in that time, you've explained in great detail exactly what worked and what you would do differently. I haven't had to add a single thing. You've covered it all. There's no reason in the world you can't do just as well in the sessions for the next 3 days. I don't have a single doubt about your abilities. Nope, I'm not staying. I'm going home." "You really think I can handle it?" she asked. "Yes, I do," I responded, flashing her another big smile. The next morning I took the first flight out and was at work in my office by lunchtime. That evening, Cecile called to say that training had gone much better that day, and she was actually looking forward to the next day's session. The next training day went even better, and there was a note of excitement in her voice as she described it. The final day they gave her a standing ovation, and on Monday morning she came to work walking 3 feet off the ground. Cecile became one of the best trainers I knew, and when the Atari experience ended, she went on to manage her own training departments in other companies. I hoped I had made a difference for her. 10 years after I left Atari and lost touch with Cecile, I was on a hike in the Santa Cruz Mountains with friends when I saw her coming toward me from the opposite direction. I stopped in my tracks and I said, "Cecile O'Brien?" She looked at me and screamed, "Brad Frager!" Then she ran toward me and jumped into my arms, much to the consternation of the guy she was with. After I set her down, she introduced me to her friend and said to him, "This is the man who gave me my start, who believed in me, who trusted me, who convinced me that I could trust myself. I owe him my life and my career." So I guess I did make a difference. Thank you.